The idea that a small man can beat a big man has always been appealing. It taps into our natural desire to see the underdog win against all odds. It's an idea everyone knows about because of the Bible story of David and Goliath, especially if the smaller man wins because of better skills, stamina, and fighting spirit. In this video, we'll discuss some unexpected times David beat Goliath in the MMA. First off, Fedor Emelianenko versus Zuluzinu. Emelianenko successfully defended his heavyweight title against Mirko Filipovic in the summer of 2005. For his next fight, he was matched up with the huge Brazilian Wagner de Conceição Martins, also known as Zuluzinu. Fedor walked into the ring at Pride Shockwave 2005 on December 31, 2005, looking as calm as ever, even though the man standing across from him was a Hulk who was 6 foot 7 inches tall. He weighed well over 100 pounds more than Fedor. At the time, Zuluzinu had never lost in 8 professional fights, but the last emperor knocked him out with a quick 1-2 combination just seconds into the fight. Fedor started hitting him with ground-and-pound punches and kicks right away. Zuluzinu tried to get back up, but a hard right hook sent him back to the mat. After more ground-and-pound, Zuluzinu was knocked out by a technical knockout. This ended his streak of not losing in just 26 seconds. Up next, Royce Gracie versus Akebono. In his career, Royce Gracie never hesitated to fight bigger men. Akebono used to be a successful sumo wrestler in Japan. He then switched to other combat sports, which led to his MMA debut. At the beginning of the fight, Gracie was caught twice under this giant, who was more than 300 pounds heavier than the Brazilian. But this was all part of his plan. He worked slowly to find space on his back the second time he was taken down. He put a foot on his right opponent's hip to create the space he needed to lift his right leg and lock an omoplata on Akebono's strong left arm. Gracie had no control over his opponent, so he hit him in the head with a few punches. He then put Akebono in a shoulder lock and made him tap. This showed again how powerful Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is, no matter how big the opponent is. Followed by Rodrigo Nogueira versus Bob Sapp. Bob Sapp might have become a joke later in his life, but when he met Antonio Rodrigo Nogueira at Pride Shockwave in 2002, he was still the beast. There were 71,000 people there to watch the show that night, and they knew it would be wild when Big Nog immediately went for a takedown. But he was quickly picked up by Sapp and powerbombed to the mat. Sapp's huge fist slammed down on him, leaving him bloodied, and bone-crushing slams kept Nogueira from giving up. The legendary toughness of Big Nog was on full display though. When Sapp got tired in the second round, he finally won with a nice reversal that put him on top inside control. Then he worked patiently for an armbar, fighting hard to get out of Sapp's grip. Finally, he dropped back with the arm stretched out to make the beast tap out and get one of his most memorable wins. Moving on to Manaua versus Giant Silva. Ikuhisa Manaua was known for testing himself against big opponents. Giant Silva was the biggest he could find. Silva was a freak of nature who used to play basketball for Brazil and then went on to become a professional wrestler. On the surface, it made little sense for Manaua man to be in the ring with a man who was a foot and a half taller than him, but it was exactly what he liked. After a slow start, Manaua closed the gap by rolling into his opponent. He then used a single leg to put Giant on the ground. From there, he moved to side control and started to hit the big man in the stomach with elbows and knees. Silva quickly gave up when he started landing stiff knees to the head, and Manaua man won by TKO just 2 minutes and 33 seconds into the fight. Next, Yuki Kondo versus Simi Schilt. Even though many giants have fought in combat sports, Simi Schilt is one of the few who went on to be as successful as he is now. The super heavyweight became a kickboxing champion with an impressive 42-6-1 record, but he started as a professional MMA fighter in the sport's early days. In 1996, Schilt was set to fight Japanese MMA pioneer Yuki Kondo in the first round of the Pancrase Neo Blood tournament. During the fight, it was impressive that Kondo could use his wrestling skills to take down Schilt, who was much bigger than him. Even though Kondo himself was mounted a few times, he managed to stay on his feet and win by a split decision. But that was just the beginning for these two. Kondo would go on to show that his first win wasn't a fluke by beating him again and again by decision over the next few years. Not to mention Fedor Emelianenko versus Hongman Choi. South Korean super heavyweight Hongman Choi started as a kickboxer. He had an excellent 12-4 record when he got the chance to fight Emelianenko in an MMA match in 2007. Fedor was on an unmatched 24-fight win streak at the time, and many people thought he was the best heavyweight in the world. Early in the fight, the last emperor had trouble because because Choi was bigger than him. On 2 separate occasions, Choi took him down quickly. Fedor tried an armbar from his back the first time, hanging from his opponent's huge arm as he did so. He then fell off and took a few punches, which left his face bruised. But when they went to the ground for the second time, the Russian star could lock in the submission again. Choi had to tap out less than 2 minutes after the fight started. Let's learn more about Diageo Takase versus Manny Yarborough. Yarborough was the heaviest athlete in the world. He won his last fight in the Shudo promotion by smothering his opponent. Takase's next opponent was Yarborough, who was over 400 pounds heavier and 8 inches shorter than him. To beat Yarborough, Takase used an intelligent but very boring strategy. He ran around Yarborough the whole time, stopping only to throw leg kicks. After getting a yellow card in the middle of the second round for not doing much, Takase changed things up and went for a single-leg takedown on the 600-pound super freak. That didn't work, and Yarborough fell on top of him. Takase was lucky that the exhausted Manny had only landed on his legs and was slowly slithering up his body. Takase could free his legs, get on top of Yarborough, and start hitting him over and over in the head. Yarborough quickly gave up and tapped out. Coming up, Gerard Gordeau versus Telly Tully. Gordeau was 4 inches taller than Tully, but there was no contest regarding weight, since Tully weighed 410 pounds, which was almost twice as much as Gordeau, but he didn't show any fear before the fight. When Tully charged across the octagon at him and fell to the ground at the beginning of the fight, Gordeau gave him a vicious kick. This sent one of the sumo wrestler's teeth flying into the crowd, and another stuck in his foot. Just 26 seconds into the fight, the referee stepped in to protect Tully from more harm, even though the rules said he wasn't supposed to. Gordeau threw one last punch, which broke his hand, and that was the end. Next, Couture versus Tim Sylvia. In the modern UFC, weight classes had pretty much put an end to these big fights, but every once in a while, a fight would come along that reminded us of those days. Randy Couture fighting Tim Sylvia at UFC 68 in 2007 was a great example. Before even considering the size difference, the natural had a lot against him going into this fight. After more than a year off, he was going to fight someone taller than him, had a longer reach, and was cutting weight, while Couture barely made the weight class at just 222.5 pounds. But Couture was always up for a challenge, and he shut down Sylvia with a right hand less than 10 seconds into the first round. Sylvia got back up, but Couture didn't let him back into the fight for the next 5 rounds. He controlled him with better wrestling in the clinch and on the mat to win the title and record one of his most inspiring victories. Finally, Mayhem Miller versus Stephen Gamlin. Jason Miller has always had a reputation for being wild, but when Icon Sports asked him to fight Stephen Gamlin in May 2006, he had second thoughts. Miller seemed to be in a bit of trouble at first when he tried to take down Gamlin but failed and let him get on top, but he was quickly able to get on top himself. Then, from side control, he landed some solid knees to the body, quickly moved into full mount, and soon after found the choke that ended the fight. And on that note, that's a wrap for this video. Which of these fights was the most unexpected win for the underdog? Let us know in the comments below. Make sure to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more videos like this, and we'll see you at the next one.